Hi everyone, welcome to the Ecosystem Innovation video series. Today we're going to be talking again to my friends from Accelerated Source to Pay. And I've got Paul Jones with me, who's the EMD of EMEA. Today we're going to talk a little bit about supplier management. Now, for anybody who doesn't know, SAP Ariba already provides a fully integrated 360 view of your suppliers. And the management thereof through our Supplier Management and Lifecycle module, which is integrated into the rest of the suite. So you get supplier management threaded through all of your processes. However, in regulated industries today, you now have to go the extra mile to ensure that your personally identifiable information is secure and it's protected, particularly with suppliers, and that sits at the heart of what procurement does, right? A lot of the suppliers in these regulated industries have individuals or contractors, whether that's pharma, whether that's manufacturing or the services industry, and therefore you need to ensure that that data is protected and the process for managing that data is secure. I'm going to talk to Paul today about an app that Accelerated Source to Pay have built. So, hi Paul, let's kick off the conversation to get your view on what's been going on and why you built the app.
Hey Mo, hey everybody. Yeah, no, good to be back. Yeah, look, I think just building on some of the points you made, what we've seen across, we've all seen the prominence in GDPR. We've seen lots of organizations have been in by data breaches, right? The importance of cybersecurity, and in a lot of sectors, a number of years ago there was a real heavy focus on customer data and know your customer. Right? A number of those sectors now, they're applying the exact same stringent regulatory rules to know your supplier and know your supplier data and protect your supplier data. So many organizations, you take sectors like life sciences, look at the supply base in life sciences. You've got healthcare professionals, you've got medical experts around the world who support the R&D process, support the sort of ongoing clinical trials of those products, right? Very they are suppliers and they are heavily regulated. Look at the media industry, where your suppliers could be actors and actresses. They could be musicians, they could be stage bands, right? So it's a lot of there's a lot of enhanced legal requirement for collating and storing personal versus business data, and that's where in the supplier base that personal versus business data can become quite clouded. So and that leaves organizations open to targeted attacks, regulatory, or even in some cases a loss of trust and loyalty to really important advocates of their business, right? So here we're thinking about things like bank details, home address information, NI security numbers, but actually you look at the PII data, it can differ, right? Globally, country to country, region to region. So that was that was the use case we saw. We wanted to build something. We look at SLP, the Ariba Supply Lifecycle Performance, particularly the supplier registration. We wanted something that really augments that process. So this is very much seen as an extension of capability to that application within Ariba. All of the benefits around self-serving of the pushing some of that maintenance of that information onto the supply base. We wanted it to be fully integrated with ERP, because obviously a lot of this is sort of results effectively in vendor master data in your ERP that's then use that. So it's really important for us that this really built on a lot of the benefits that the SLP module delivers, but actually adds to it in that respect.
So I know that you've got a couple of use cases that we can talk about, but can we just talk about how this happens? So, obviously you've got procurement who handle that supplier registration process. They do it through SLP. There's a whole process that's been built around that. So when you do your supplier registration request, you typically send that out through the tool. It gets filled out, etc. But to ensure that that data is integrated back into the ERP, how that works, and how this app kind of sits in between it. Can we just let people understand that a little bit better?
Look, the first thing is the app is the Personal Identifiable Information Protection app. We call it PiiP, right? I'll call this video. It's fully integrated with the SAP Ariba Lifecycle and Performance, SLP module. So as it would do, right, during the supplier registration process, which the supplier interacts via the business network and the SLP module, they'll go in, they'll complete that process as normal, right? However, what the supplier doesn't realize is the data entry is then undertaken via the PiiP app, and what we've built using the latest in two-factor authentication and data is we're then masking the technology to securely capture and store the sensitive and personal identifiable information data from any supplier. All right. Now at the moment, we built the app to tackle a number of fields, but actually the way we've designed it and scaled it, we can extend the app and the way we capture information for as much or as little as the PII data that any customers want to protect, right? And then that captured information is then sent directly into the ERP, so that and we've built some connectors between the app and SLP and the ERP, so effectively provide that extra level of comfort and security for those sensitive documents, and we can obviously store those during the process as well. Okay,
and from a supplier perspective, this is transparent. They don't see or know, which is part of the whole point of the UX, right? You're not thinking about using different tools or different UXs. It's seamless, right?
Correct, absolutely. I mean, look, obviously, the supplier wouldn't know who are actually in the app versus in SLP, right? The app sits within the SAP Cloud platform, and it sort of seamlessly sits between the SAP Ariba solution and the ERP system. And then, but obviously, we're for real sensitive data, we punch out to the app and they'll enter that sensitive data actually unbeknownly into the app itself. What we then still get, the benefits of SLP is that the supplier is still approved. The supply governance around registration and approvals is still upheld in the SLP module, and more importantly, that the relevant master supplier record that's created in both Ariba and ERP, the relevant data is seamlessly integrated between Ariba, SLP, and the ERP as required, right? So it's really very seamless, and just providing that extra level of comfort, security, and protection to an area that, let's be honest, it is becoming more and more profound. Right? We've built it based on real sensitive, regulated suppliers, but actually, I think if you look ahead over the next few years, I just think in general, some of that data for that a supplier will be classed as PII data. So I think the use case here is only going to broaden over time, in my view.
Yeah, and so the bi-directional integration to ERP, which SLP affords, you're just connecting directly into that, capturing the information that is sensitive data, let's call it, ensuring it's got the additional layer of security and rigor and process, and then you just use the technology that's already there to carry on doing its magic, right?
Correct.
So how does that then? So let's talk about a couple of use cases. You mentioned, I think it was the entertainment industry. Yeah, you've got a customer in the entertainment industry who are using this. Can we talk about how they've used it and why they saw the need, what it was that you guys did, and how that now works, please?
And look, the way I look at it, the use cases, so the one that you just referred to, I think, is the first one I'll talk about. But actually, what's really interesting about this use case is, in general, when you look at this customer's supplier onboarding and registration process, it was very manual. It was very off system. They weren't offering any secure encryption of that data. This is basically a multinational entertainment and record label business, right? So they've got multi-billion, over 3,500 people, have operations in more than countries. But actually, if you just look generally at the supplier onboarding process, they didn't have Ariba SLP, or they didn't have the PiiP app, so they were significantly exposed. Right. There was lots of data collected manually, lots of formatting. So not just increasing the risk of sort of poor protection, but actually lots of admin and time and cost associated to it.
So, to be fair, I think this industry in general is like that, right? I think it's not just the customer that you're talking about. Yeah. A lot of their processes tend to be manual. I know that they're moving towards a different space, but in my experience, I can think of at least 3 other companies that would have done it the same way.
Yeah, and look, there was no easy way for suppliers. In this case, right, we're talking about the Tom Cruises of this. You could argue as a supplier, right? There's no easy way for those individuals who were suppliers to securely provide or update their data as and when required to probably an organization that was probably their single biggest customer in a way, bringing to that club. So in this instance, it was very much the Ariba SLP solution and the PiiP app being positioned together to that customer to really deliver a step change in how they manage some of that supplier risk and supplier management in the solution, particularly for those PII sort of regulated suppliers and individuals. Step one, we enabled we deployed both the PiiP and the SLP app together. Transferred the instant development. Run lots of components went around it. But actually, the key here is what we've delivered here is simple supplier onboarding through the mobile applications and some of the standard SLP capability, much more self-serve, much more governance and integration around the supply data, but actually the protection of the brand reputation, the reduction in administration, the reduction in fraud through two-factor user authentication, all of those are just significant. It's hard to put a value on some of those benefits, right? Whereas I think the second use case is equally as interesting, where actually what we're now seeing is organizations that existing Ariba customers, who are using the Ariba SLP solution in a sector where there's increasing amount of regulatory pressure on protecting and knowing the supply data. We're having lots of conversations right now with existing SLP customers where they just see this as a great product extension, for the reasons I outlined previously, where actually what this does is it takes their investment in SLP and just, protects it, makes it more secure, gives them that extra layer of protection, particularly for some of those suppliers where the regulator has a high degree of expectations around how they do that.
Yeah, it's helping to manage that liability in a cloud world, right? So I think, which is a challenge, I think, for a lot of different organizations. So, okay, so in terms of, if anybody wants to know more, we've shown some high-level stats in terms of the case study that we were just talking about, but you've got more information on your website.
So we've got all of our apps. All the information is on our website. We've also, this app is approved and available on the App Store. There's a lot of support and documentation around that. So
on the SAP App Store,
on the SAP App Store, absolutely. So either of those two forums, they can, customers can access those, can request more information. Obviously, we're at hand to provide, videos, demos, go through some of those, either previous use cases, but what we're finding actually, the more and more sectors and clients that we're talking to, even just sitting down and understanding the use cases relevant for oil and gas versus life services versus media can be very different, right? But yeah, they're the two best places to do it.
All right, brilliant. Well, thanks a lot, Paul. Appreciate it. I know we've got more apps that we're going to cover, but you can go on the S2P website to have a look at what they've got. We're going to cover a few more via this forum. And do comment below, either if you've got thoughts on this, or if you want more information. Paul and I are happy to kind of help you with any questions and queries that you have. And do share the video and subscribe to the channels. Thanks again, Paul. See you again soon. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Cheers now.
Thank you. Bye.